Good evening. Welcome to tonight's council meeting. I apologize for the late start. We were letting the holidays get the best of us, I guess. First thing I'm going to ask for is agenda changes.
Mr. Mayor, under the executive session, we need to add a second executive session for attorney-client privilege. And other than that, no other changes from staff this evening.
Okay, council, you all good with that? Next, I'm going to open up for public forum. If there's anybody here wishing to address the council that's not on the agenda, now's the time to step forward. Seeing no movement from the gallery, I'm going to close the public forum and go on and ask for the approval of the consent agenda.
Mr. Mayor, after reviewing the consent agenda submitted, I would make a motion to approve it.
Second.
Have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Consent agenda stands as approved. We're going to move on to unfinished business. The first item is a distressed property at 126 East 3rd. You have an update for us there, Ethan?
I will turn
Or
it
is
over.
Rayleigh doing this tonight, or Brad's doing it?
This will be a subject of our executive.
Okay.
That one.
So is there anything you want to add now, or we'll just move past it and wait till after the executive? Okay. So we'll move on to distressed property at 603 Spruce Street. How about that one?
That one I can take as well. I had a conversation today with counsel for the current owners who are listed, as you'll recall, on the limited certificate when we had that done. We've kind of gone back and forth on this. There was some indication of just being willing to do a quitclaim deed to us, and I'd prepared those, and I thought that's what the phone call was about, and came to find out that no, they had contacted her to go ahead and assist them. They wish to maintain the property. They wish to go ahead and improve it and put it back into usable condition. The problem that they had run into, it got a little complex with the mortgage holder. There was a cloud on the title. They were reluctant to do any upgrades to it while that was still pending. They appear, according to their legal counsel, to have gotten that resolved. And so now they wish to go ahead and take the property and upgrade it. And I think they're present this evening. As I'd spoken with their counsel, they'd indicated a willingness to be here so you could hear it directly from them. From my perspective in talking with her, I don't have an issue, and I haven't completely discussed in full, although we did discuss it this afternoon with Mr. Reimer. It's probably something that they're willing to present the full, what we typically require, which would be the comprehensive remediation. They have not seen the report that was done in terms of the inspection, which I'd indicated to their legal counsel they could get upon request, or she could get it if need be. And I think then they would like a little time to be able to come back to you with that plan for remediation. And I discussed with their legal counsel what that involved and what it would take in terms of a punch list and the budget and contractors and that kind of thing. So, but anyway, if.
May I?
Yeah, by all means, if Brad's done.
Yeah, I am.
Yeah,
Thank you.
give us your name and your current address and let us know what your plans are.
I'm Mike Wickers, owner of the property. Brenda Riffle and myself, Mike Wickers, owners of 603 Spruce Street here in Halstead, Kansas, 67056. Address 425 Harvey Street, Halstead, Kansas, 67056. Good evening, Mayor Travis and council. Thank you for having us here. And first off and foremost, Merry Christmas and Happy New Year, all. Our intentions are to assess and evaluate the property and what we need to do from this point forward in developing a plan. And what would be gratefully helpful in developing that plan is a copy of the current and on-file inspection report, so I kind of know where I stand compared to the report and what I'm looking at. We are excited to move forward on the property now that the clouds have been eliminated and we understand what our positions are. So again, we're glad to be here with you this evening. Thank you again for the invite. And we are excited in moving forward, being that we've been involved with this community for a couple of decades, and look forward to continuing this relationship in appreciation of this fine town, Halstead.
Ethan, do you see any reason why a copy of that report couldn't be provided to them?
No, I believe a copy was sent via email to their council either this evening or will be sent first thing tomorrow.
Okay.
Excellent, thank you, Ethan.
Council, do you have any direct questions for the owners at this time?
Just thank you for coming in and being willing to work with us and address this property. Thank you.
Absolutely, thank you as well.
We will need to develop some kind of a timeline for when we expect to hear back from you guys after you've done your inspection of the property yourselves and come back with a plan.
Sounds good.
How much?
I can help a little bit there, and I don't know how much conversation you had with your legal counsel, but she was not available for our first meeting in January, which was just a couple of weeks away. So I asked that potentially if there were need for appearance, the 22nd is when she would be available to appear. Also discussed, if possible, if they had the inspection report and the ability to assess in advance of that and get a plan to you in written form prior to the 8th so that it could be evaluated in a meeting, that it might not require an appearance. I don't know any of that. It depends upon what all they produce and that kind of thing. But we did talk about all those various contingencies.
That second meeting's January 22nd. So should we just continue this until then? And
That's what I would suggest.
council, anybody have an issue with that? No, I think that's fine. If I could get a motion to that regards, we'll make it happen.
Mr. Mayor, I'd move that we continue this distressed property hearing at 603 Spruce in 22nd of January? Yes.
Second.
Have a motion and a second to continue the distressed property hearing for 603 Spruce to January 22nd. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Post same sign. We'll see you then.
Excellent. Mayor Travis, council, thank you for having us again. Appreciate being here and look forward to working with you.
Thanks for coming in. We're glad the problems are getting resolved and that we'll see some forward progress on that property.
Most definitely.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Next item is the distressed property at 217 Main. Who's taking that one, Ethan?
I'll turn that over to Brad for an update on where we are. Just, I guess, as a reminder, that one where, because of lack of communication from the property owner or any representative legal counsel, we're pretty much forced to get a structural evaluation done. We'd need an administrative warrant to get in, so that would fall to our city attorney to.
Based on our prior discussions, or at least the indication that I have in place, unless someone chooses to correct me on that, we wanted to be able to see the inside of that one as well as the exterior. So we'll go forward with the administrative warrant at this point. Last known address on the owner is Abilene, I think. So we'll try to get service one way or another. But that, there are several things I can do if we can't find them to still get the order. And then we'll just proceed with, I assume, that Ethan has the authority if we want to go ahead and get in that thing with an inspector and see what kind of report we can get.
Okay.
Yep.
Do you need any action from the council regarding that one other?
No, I think we've got that instruction, and unless that's, as I've reiterated it, unless that's inaccurate, we'll just proceed.
Do we need to continue that one or just leave it open?
Yeah, we can just leave that open.
All right, if there's no other questions regarding 217 Main, we'll move on to the next one. That's a distressed property at 308 Chestnut. Where are we at on that one?
I guess we'll turn that over to Brad since that's the same legal counsel as the 126 East Third. Again, just as a reminder, you all had asked based on the inspection report and the structural issues on that second story walkway that the property be fenced off within 30 days. And to my knowledge, no action's been taken yet in that regard. So.
And in my conversation today with Jeremy Schrog, he's basically out through the end of the year. I just caught him on his cell phone, and so we could get an update on that. There is still the intent, based upon the report that he did provide around, what was it, the 11th of December or so, to address and have that prepared in a detailed report as to what they want to do. The owner still wishes to go ahead and effect all the necessary repairs consistent with that report on it. He and I did not discuss candidly the fencing today. I just mentioned that those requirements were still outstanding. When I talked with Ethan, I think we had talked about the 22nd on that also, as being, everything needed to be done by then. I don't know if we want some immediacy to the fencing so that it should be done right now. If so, then I can call him, text him even from here. He is available by cell phone if we need him this evening.
Is there a way that we could drive the owner of that property to provide and pay for the fencing rather than us having to put out front?
Yeah.
I'd like to pursue that. I mean, have him go out and rent the fencing and.
We're the local jurisdictional entity in terms of public welfare, health, safety. We have the right to do it, but you could ask the owner, I mean, in essence, that's the polite term, to go ahead and fence it off for safety purposes in order for this to continue to be considered going forward for purposes of remediation, that sort of thing, as part of your distressed property process.
Ethan, do you think that that raises an issue, just kind of like a fly in the ointment? Would it be, does it make the situation more difficult to us trying to get him to do it rather than us doing it? Obviously, if we do it, we're gonna have to pay to rent the fencing, but, it'd be great if we could have him pay for it. I don't wanna, muck the water, so to speak.
Yeah, I mean, I think either way, the property owner's gonna feel like it's, maybe not a necessary thing. I mean, I would leave it up to Brad or his counsel to advise him on the attractive nuisance. I mean, I think both our inspectors, which granted, our inspector's not a structural engineer, but the actual structural engineer report was pretty adamant that second story walkway, and I mean, you can get up there. I mean, or if you want to get up there
Well,
currently, and it's not a secured property by any stretch. Now, granted, you would have to be up there to encounter that issue, potentially. I mean, they didn't say it was at risk of, just free fall collapse, but that no one should be on it. And I don't know how we try and do that, and right now is a prime example of, I mean, school is out, et cetera, and
Well, even to get up to those walkways, like I said, when I was over there, I had my little monocular looking at that stuff, and I was able to look at from a great distance. Even go up the stair stringers, those are precarious. So you could be in danger just trying to get up to the top. So,
but at the end of the day, if you endanger yourself, you were trespassing to start with, so I don't know what the right answer is there.
Well, you're right, and you're going through the initial phase of maybe not on the internet portion of it, but in terms of the property law class that the attorneys all go through, the attractive nuisance outweighs that. And you will typically always, by definition, have a trespasser on a large open pit or a pool that isn't properly secured. But that doesn't save you as a property owner. At that point, you've maintained something that attracts someone. When I drove by it last, which was 2 days ago, there's no signage, no trespassing or anything like that as well, which would give you at least a little bit of cover. But what you could do is simply direct that we ask if he's looking to have the additional time to present in January, that he secure the property with the fence and do so within, you fill in the blank, so and so many days. And if not, we reserve the right to do so in the interest of public safety. But again, it's still his attractive nuisance. So the burden still falls to the property owner.
Well, we could probably just do plastic fence over there.
I'd say if we did it honestly, I mean, I haven't talked to Pat, but we would probably just do snow fence, at the
barricade.
I mean,
very there.
I say we just do that. I mean, we shouldn't wait for some kid to get hurt on it.
Yeah.
Do we have enough snow fence to do that, Pat?
Should.
Okay.
Just get the courtyard.
Well, then we'll go ahead and put the snow fence up and we'll send him a bill for that.
That's,
And he'll wish he would have put up chain link. Do we need any other type of action on that item?
I guess just confirmation for, and Ethan, you may be more confident with that than I. I was looking at my own note and I had the same thing, a reference to January. But as I understood it, we're giving him until the 22nd to present that plan. Is that what everybody understands it to be? Okay, then no, I don't need anything else.
Okay.
I'll just reiterate that with his legal counsel.
I guess you might note we're gonna put up some temporary
Yeah,
fencing.
I will email him with all that.
Excellent.
Well, if we're good on 308 Chestnut, we'll move on the agenda. And that finishes up unfinished business. We'll move on to new business. The first item under new business is ordinance number 1339. This is city utility general provision update. Basically housekeeping item, right, Ethan?
A little bit, just clarifying some sections in code as we've gone through it, and obviously, new utility billing staff, new clerk staff as we talk to them on ways to make it. Right now, currently, the code indicates that while bills are due on the 15th, technically there's until 10 a.m. the day after the 15th to pay before it's considered actually delinquent, or if it goes the next, the following week, there's also that till 10 a.m. window that allows when the account would be subject to termination or shut off. So this ordinance would change that to actually say at 5 o'clock, end of business day on the 15th is when bills are due, eliminate that 2-hour window on the next morning. Talking with staff, it just creates a lot of administrative issues because 10 o'clock comes, somebody calls and says, it's 9:59 according to my clock, why am I still late? And as we go, or how fast can we get out if everyone's, this morning, and Rayleigh could probably speak to it far better than I, as she deals with a lot of the in-person or phone calls, we just get a ton of inundation there right at 9:50 to 10 o'clock of people either wanting to come in and write agreements, come in. And we've tried administratively to say we won't do agreements the morning of, but we feel kind of in this day and age with electronic payment mediums, we don't really need this 2-hour grace window anymore. So going back and just saying our business day ends at 5 o'clock. If payment isn't received by 5 o'clock and the next morning when Bree or the utility billing, clerk comes in, they can just start running the process. Because right now, honestly, sometimes they can't even start moving that billing process forward until after they get back from lunch, just because we have so much either payments coming in or dealing with people who want to challenge, and we feel this would make it cleaner. And it also does that then on the 23rd for turnoff. In this case, though, it's actually going to be in anyone's benefit because right now, 10 a.m. on the 23rd is when you become subject to disconnect. This would actually give you till 5 o'clock on the 23rd, so we wouldn't process disconnects until the 24th. So we take away the 2-hour window, if you will, on the delinquency date, but on the turnoff date, you're actually getting 6 more hours basically to pay a bill before you'd be subject to turnoff for those fees.
So are we gonna could we put the Reader's Digest version of this ordinance in the bill package, so when we
Yeah,
send
we
bills
will,
out?
we
let
will
people
update
know?
everything and make sure if this is approved this evening of what these changes are.
Big notes, read this.
And that's one of the reasons we decided as we spoke and visited with Brad of keeping the 23rd is most people have the 23rd date in their head. And so we just said, it kicks us back a day, but we don't think that's going to cause us issues with, starting next month's billing, that kind of thing. So we do. And then there was also some provisions currently under 15103 that were in your packet that kind of has some of the older language about, your right to request hearings, lays out, that the city clerk has to formally answer this within 3 days, has to make a determination whether the hearing is justified. We're a small city. I don't know that we've ever refused to talk to anyone on their utility bill, look into it. So we just moved that customers have the right to make contact with the city, and request that their bill be reviewed and get rid of this formal hearing, that lays out this very, layered process, basically, even going up to eventually you all if this was, some dispute that just couldn't be handled. So that's the changes to 15103. 15104 was related kind of to that formal hearing process, but basically gave the city clerk, in a short manner of speaking, the ability to grant extensions for good cause. This just extends that that staff would have the ability to grant extensions or to make administrative policies regarding extensions, which we currently already do. This just would codify that. And then 15109 gets into the disconnection termination fees. Currently, the structure is on your first offense, you have a $10 fee, your second, you have a $35 fee, your fourth, you have a 50, and on the fifth, you have a 75. We're looking to streamline that for the first time, going to a $25 fee, second time 50, third and subsequent 75. We did, however, change, right now, you have to have on-time payments for 24 months before you get off that tiered fee assessment. This took it down to 12. Generally speaking, it's been our experience, if most people self-correct in a year, they're usually on time payments, and 2 years is a really long window to keep people, where they might get a $75 fee again. And then has the current provision still of that it applies to not paying your bill on time, not that you're immediately at the $75 tier because you have gas, water, and wastewater as a utility. So largely preserves the language as is. Just gets us into a simpler fee structure because the 10, 30, 10, 35, 50, 75 window, this feels cleaner administratively, again, for staff's ease explaining it to a customer of if it's your first, second, third offense, and at your third offense, you're at the max, and that's what it stays until you make a year of on-time payments. And then notes, because we do have, just clarifying that fee applies whether we physically disconnect or not. That always seems to be a sticking point, that this fee is being charged. And again, it's when you don't make your payment by that time frame, not necessarily even like in winter where we don't physically necessarily go shut off utilities for a variety of reasons. We're still gonna charge those fees even though someone didn't physically go terminate service at the meter. And this just, the update to 15109 specifies that it is assessed whether you were physically disconnected or not, so.
So you just cleaned up a lot of stuff here.
Yep.
It sounds a lot easier. With that, if there's no more questions or comments, Mr. Mayor, I'd make a motion to approve ordinance number 1339, an ordinance amending chapter 15, article 1, section 15-103, 15-104, and 15-109 of the city code of City of Halstead, Kansas.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to adopt ordinance number 1339. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Pose same sign. That ordinance carries. Next item up is city utility rates. I know Ethan's gonna wanna address these one at a time with motions, but, do you wanna talk about what the increases are for each unit, Ethan?
Yeah. So, yeah, 1340, is for our water rates, and I'll note on both water and wastewater, that we did basically keep the existing structures as was currently in ordinances because, the ordinances in place didn't actually expire until, the end of 2024. Or 2025, excuse me. So the per gallonage overage rates, if you will, did not change from what's currently in ordinance. The big change on water is we went from $23 a month minimum fee to $23.50 minimum fee, which is about a 2.2% increase in that base charge, still up to 1,500 gallons. And then the corresponding overage charges go up about 2%. Per year, and this has long been the city's standard of kind of trying to adopt rates in these 5-year windows. Sometimes we go back like now and revisit them a little bit sooner if we need to, or they can be changed at any point via ordinance. Wastewater, the big change is actually, like speaking with Pat and other communities, we allowed up to 5,000 gallons in wastewater, even though our minimum water usage is 1,500 gallons, and that disconnect doesn't make a lot of sense. We know just based off the wastewater treatment plant evaluation that we will have to take some major financial, steps and upgrades at that wastewater treatment. I think you all remember from just kind of the basic rate overview, we are looking at increases. So we went ahead and dropped that minimum down to 2,000 gallons. And we're gonna see what this does to our wastewater generation, because if this helps, then that should hopefully help us alleviate a need for a more massive increase. Again, some of that's gonna depend on what final upgrades we do at the plant, what that final bill is, but this just kind of gets us a head start, hopefully eases into things of changing that minimum gallonage down to 2,000 gallons on wastewater. And again, the per gallon overage charges, if you will, the conservation tiers remain the same as far as rates. And then finally, on the resolution for the trash rates, Harvey County is again raising their tipping fees. Our contract with Nisley states that they can increase their rate to us anytime that the tipping rates, we've swallowed those the last 3 years and not passed those on, just because we've had so much with, the recycling changes, et cetera. These rates we adopted basically reflect those tippage fees and get us set. And I just did note that the refuse rates are still cheaper under this resolution than they were 2 years ago, like before recycling got taken away and all that. So we're still at a discount compared to where we were prior. So that's where we are. Again, the two water and wastewater ordinances have 5-year windows. Those are obviously tentative, but we do try and hold them if possible. And then the refuse rates, those we just do at resolution whenever the cost to us justify making those increases, so.
So we need, did you have a comment, Josh?
No, I think I'm good.
Okay. Well, it's good to be proactive on these. There are some communities around us who waited many, many years before they increased some of their user fees. And when they did, the citizens were pretty outraged about it. So I think doing a little bit at a time as we need to is a good idea. With that, Mr. Mayor, I'd make a motion to approve ordinance number 1348, ordinance repealing ordinance number 1305, amending Chapter 15, Article 2, Water of the Code of the City of Halstead, Kansas, setting user charge and surcharge rate and repealing existing section 15-229.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve ordinance number 1340. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That ordinance is approved.
Mr. Mayor, I'd make a motion to approve ordinance number 1341, an ordinance repealing ordinance number 1306, amending Chapter 15, Article 4, Sewer, the Code of the City of Halstead, Kansas, setting user charges, sewer surcharge rates, and repealing existing section 15-436.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve ordinance number 1341. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That stands approved.
And with that, Mr. Mayor, I'd make a motion to approve resolution number 2023-26, a resolution adopting rates for the collection of the solid waste in the city of Halstead, Kansas.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve resolution number 2023-26. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That stands as approved. Okay, moving on down the agenda, our next item is the Animal Shelter Services Agreement with Caring Hands. You wanna enlighten us there, Ethan?
Yeah, as y'all remember, hopefully we started contracting with Caring Hands for animal shelter services. That was done just because of the changing requirements from the state as far as keeping a local kennel, which used to be at the wastewater treatment plant. Then if animals, were necessitated certain care in the winter, we had to go out because we had outdoor. You couldn't just keep them outside depending on weather. So the big change is just a few language changes, which I don't believe the city attorney saw anything there that gave him pause. They were highlighted as far as the draft that was in your packet. And the other major change is right now we were paying $17.50, I believe, per animal per day. And Caring Hands operationally needed to increase that fee to $20 per animal per day. The major provisions, though, as far as there's a 3-day max before they go into Caring Hands custody if they're not claimed. The city's only responsible for those first 3 days. Still hold true, still has provisions like if we put something on a bite hold or things like that, Josh can answer, but generally speaking, if we get into any of those more convoluted situations where carrying hands is stepping in and keeping a dog for more than that 3-day period, typically that's also being handled in municipal court, and we're seeking restitution for those fees paid by the city. So not anticipated in the memo I just pointed out, we spent less than $500 this year in boarding fees as of the end of November, so this is not something that's a huge financial expense to us in a normal year.
There's no questions. Mr. Mayor, I make a motion to approve agreement with Caring Hands Humane Society for Animal Shelter Services from January 1st, 2024 through December 31st, 2025, and for staff to sign necessary documents.
Have a motion and a second to approve the agreement with Caring Hands. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. And that passes. Next item under new business is an employee market wage and cost of living adjustment. I think Ethan's got everything in your packet there. Is there any questions regarding that, council?
And the only thing I would like to point out, Mr. Mayor, is I did include this year the October employee cost index summary. And what that is basically just shows, if you guys went out and looked, that's the anticipated compensation cost that's seen across the US. They only adjust or do that quarterly, so the next one wouldn't be available until January, but it was, or just to kind of show of across, the entire workforce, if you will, where wages and benefits are typically seen, or those increased costs to employers. So just thought maybe that was some additional information beyond just the CPI information that we usually share. So
If there's no questions or comments, Mr. Mayor, I'd make a motion to approve 3% increase to the base wages for all full-time city employees who are not on probation status for disciplinary reasons, effective with a pay period beginning December 30th, 2023.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve employee market wage cost of living adjustment. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That carries. That concludes our new business portion of our agenda. We do have 2 executive sessions on the agenda tonight, and I would entertain the motion for the first one about now.
All right. Mr. Mayor, I move that the Halstead City Council recess into an executive session to discuss the performance of the city employee and maintain privacy pursuant to the personal matters of non-elected personnel, exception KSA 75-4319B1. And ask that in addition to the governing body, the following persons join the governing body in executive session: the city manager, city attorney. The open meeting and governing body to reconvene in the city council chambers at 7:55 PM.
Second.
Have a motion and a second to enter into executive session. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. We are in executive session. We'll move to the back room, council. We are back from our executive session. Is there any action to be taken as a result of? Seeing no movement from the council, we'll move on. I'm gonna ask for the motion for the second executive session.
Mr. Mayor, I move that the Halstead City Council recess into executive session to discuss contract negotiations pursuant to the consultation with an attorney on matters that would be deemed privileged in the attorney-client relationship, exception KSA 75-4319B2, and ask that in addition to the governing body, the following persons join the governing body in executive session: the city manager and the city attorney. The open meeting and governing body to reconvene in the city council chambers at 8:05 PM.
Second.
Have a motion and a second to enter back into executive session. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay, we'll move to the We are back from that executive session. Is there any action to be taken as a result of? Hearing nothing from the council, I'm gonna move on to our report section and start with governing body comments, and I'll start tonight with you, Denise.
I don't have anything tonight.
George?
No, sir, nothing.
Josh?
I do not, thanks.
Derek?
Nope.
Well, I guess that leaves me, and, tonight's gonna be a special night. I've got a proclamation that, Julie helped me prepare, and it was kind of a campaign promise that I would do this. And she gives me a hard time about reading proclamations, so tonight I've got one that will be pleasurable for me to read. And this proclamation is Bibbed Overall Day Proclamation 2024, a celebration of your mayor's occasional fashion choice. Whereas we often celebrate our public works, fire, police, EMS, public employees, elected officials, nurses, doctors, and other professionals with little praise for the working men and women that built this country with the sweat of their brow and the strength of their backs. Whereas it is those people that I celebrate today with my Bibbed Overall Day Proclamation. If you don't have a pair, you should get some. Whereas they offer comfort with everyday wearability and durability, the true symbol of the working man or woman. Whereas the people I want to celebrate with my proclamation are electricians, plumbers, masons, ironworkers, concrete finishers, HVAC technicians, farmers, ranchers, mechanics, machinists, miners, loggers, railroad workers, and the like. Whereas these folks with their unique skill sets keep this country running and provide the infrastructure to our homes and businesses in today's world we often take for granted. Whereas defined by Wikipedia, overalls are bib and brace overalls, also called dungarees in British English, are a type of garment used as protective clothing when working. Whereas the garments are commonly referred to as a pair of overalls by analogy with a pair of trousers. You don't have to get all choked up on me, George. Whereas overalls were originally made of denim, but they can also be made of other materials such as corduroy, chino cloth, or leather. Whereas overalls were invented in the mid to late 1890s by Grace Howard and Jacob W. Davis at Levi Strauss and Company, and they went through an evolution to reach their modern form. Whereas initially created to serve as protective clothing during physically demanding work, they have since become a fashion garment, and many high fashion brands have released their own spin on overalls. Whereas today, overalls can still be found in some workplaces while also being worn casually by all kinds of people. Therefore, I, Dennis Travis, Mayor of the City of Halstead, proclaim January 3rd, 2024, my birthday, as Overall Day in Halstead, Kansas. And I encourage those that own this fine garment to proudly wear them this day. And if you don't own a pair, well, this just might be the excuse you're needing to buy a pair. And I will be available to take my picture with you that day between 1 o'clock and 2 o'clock at City Hall. So with that, we'll move on to our city manager, Ethan, for his city manager report.
Don't know that anything I can say is going to compare. Joint Seed 2.0 grant application that we put in with the cities of North Newton and Sedgwick was successful, and all three communities will be splitting a $25,000 grant award for respective community vibrancy projects. For Halstead, we will be looking at installing wayfinding signage around town to point to attractions, amenities, and hope to tie into the branding on the marquee. Staff will start working with potential vendors in the beginning of the year to bring back proposals and ideas for council review. Staff continues working with Imagine IT and Idea Tech on bringing the city facilities live on our dark fiber network with City Hall and Police Station, and then Fire and EMS being fully transitioned. I will note that until we complete that transition, we do have a slight duplication of services. We're carrying dual internet coverage with both Cox and Idea Tech, but hopefully we will have everything resolved by the end of January 2024 to limit that duplication in service and billing. City staff are also working with Imagine IT on transitioning to the Security Shield services, which will go live in January. While we have not yet finalized a contract with Prairie Building Systems, I did go ahead and approve the quote to secure pricing as steel prices are anticipated to increase in the coming weeks. Unless there is strong objection or feeling otherwise from you all, I will coordinate with the mayor on some of the minor things we have to decide quickly, such as the color scheme and whatnot, but it is in our interest to keep this project moving. So we did go ahead and sign that quote to keep it going forward, both in terms of the grant and then the overall construction market and to get on their schedule. Still working with City Attorney Jantz on getting a suitable design build contract in place. So we will still have a final contract protection, not just operating off the quote. The city received notice from KDOT that our anticipated bid date for the Safe Routes to School project was pushed until June of 2024. Originally, we were scheduled in April of 2024. We are working with the consulting engineer at Lochner to see if there's any possibility of moving the project up for bid letting. But we are also at KDOT's mercy as they are the ones who officially let that project. We're also working to make sure that we have adjusted the pricing accordingly due to these delays to maximize both the grant benefit and ensure that any creeping costs are still split 80-20. Just a reminder that city offices will be closed Monday, January 1st for New Year's Day, but then will be open again starting Tuesday, January 2nd. Municipal court is also scheduled for Wednesday, January 3rd. Trash pickup for both this week and next week will be on Friday instead of Thursday due to the holidays. Public Works will also make their one-time pass through the city the week of January 2nd for live Christmas tree pickup. So anyone wishing to utilize that service needs to have their non-bagged trees curbside by 8 a.m. on Tuesday to ensure that it does not get missed. And then a final note that both outgoing and newly elected officials need to be present at our January 9th meeting so we can conduct any old business and then transition to the new governing body. For those of you coming off the bench, please turn in your tablets to Julie or I at any point before the next meeting or during the next meeting is also acceptable. And then also, if you have any emails on your city emails that you wish to keep, please make sure you forward those out to another email account, as your city emails will be deactivated on January 10th for security reasons, with no access beyond that point. So other than the above, most departments and staff are just focused on year-end processing and reporting, and then a lot of people are taking some well-deserved time out of the office as well, so. And if there's no objection, I'll just go into the year-end. Just quickly, as we'll have more in-depth year-end reporting in January, at the end of November, all our budgeted funds were still comfortably within their budget authority and no cash basis issues occurred or are anticipated. Interest income continues to be a significant buoy for revenues, as do greater than anticipated sales tax revenues in our general fund. Overall, the majority of funds have hit their revenue projections or anticipated to by the end of December. The majority of funds are meeting the stated financial goals of controlling expenditures to 90% of budget authority or less. And most departments are also operating within the general fund, and we don't anticipate any year-end invoices will draw or move any fund substantially away from that trend. Projections right now across all budgeted funds is that we should exceed desired cash carryover goals by at least $500,000 or more, with the majority of that being in the main funds like our general fund, water, wastewater, and gas. A few funds do appear that they will miss their year-end targets, but this is for our minor funds such as Special Parks and Recreation, VIN, or Special Liability. Some of that's anticipated due to expenditures, and some of it's just driven by revenues like alcohol tax for Special Parks and Recreation. Right now, things indicate that we should end 2023 in a strong and stable position to start off on our 2024 fiscal year. Two other minor things I did want to note. First, after adjusting for the issuance cost, the city did end up using approximately $32,000 in local funds that came out of the general fund for the acquisition of the Tebow property, with the rest being covered by those taxable GO bond proceeds. The second item is that the treasurer's report for November reflected the Cedar Meadows and Main Street temporary notes, but does not yet reflect those taxable GO bonds, as we did not officially close on that issue until December. But that will be reflected in the December's treasurer report, and that should then mean that our treasurer's reports reflect all of our issued debt from 2023 in its entirety. So you guys can see that in full at the end of December. And that is all I have, unless there are any questions.
Anybody have any questions for Ethan? If not, that concludes our agenda, and I would entertain a motion for adjournment.
So move.
We have a motion and a second for adjournment. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. We will be adjourned right after I say I hope to see a lot of people here January 3rd between 1 and 2 in their overalls. Have a good night, Halstead.